Thanks for tuning your machine to our broadcast.
I'm Davis.
And I'm Van. And we are Holy Moley Comics.
Welcome to episode 1 of our upcoming ongoing series,
Tales from the Bin. This is a show where we each pick 3 different comics from the dollar comic bins found in most comic book stores and discuss our findings.
We also plan to feature alternative budget-friendly sources where you can find comics, such as the library, thrift stores, online outlets, etc.
Our intention, seek out the forgotten, the strange, and the mysterious left behind to determine their quality. In doing so, we hope to find some hidden gems, a few laughs, and some fun behind-the-scenes context behind each issue. In addition to our readings, we will also be undertaking some additional research, learning more about the creative teams, the publishing companies, and the stories behind the stories.
Stan Lee says every comic is someone's first, and we want to put that to the test. Can you really jump into the middle of an obscure run you have never heard of? What hidden treasures lie within these bins? We believe that comics are for everybody, and that cost or gatekeeping should not be a barrier to entry to one of the greatest storytelling mediums there is.
This is an excellent way to engage with comics on a budget, as the dollar bins provide a very accessible way to get into the hobby.
With all that out of the way, let's delve into the bins to see what we've uncovered. Okay, my first pick from the bins for this episode is Magnus Robot Fighter, issue number 24. The creative team behind this is written by John Ostrander, pencils by James Brock and Peter Grau, Jimmy Palmiotti on inks, and Mark, I think I'm saying this right, Sarzar on colors. Bob Layton is the editor-in-chief on this one. This was published by Valiant Comics in April 1993. This was a kind of a fun book. It's really wacky. My experience reading it was confusing because it's like part 4 of an arc and also issue 24 of an ongoing series.
Oh, wow.
So it was really... There's a lot going on that I do not have the context for.
It's always funny when you pop into the middle of a series, any kind of series, and it's kind of a fun evaluation to give each issue of can it stand alone on its own. I can see it being difficult being, like I said, part 4 of ongoing.
It's like a very crazy sci-fi series with that sci-fi speak with like everything kind of has a term that like referring to groups of people or characters that like I don't know what this means, or
brings in the whole like jargon aspect.
Exactly. So that was kind of confusing in that sense as well, but it was a fun read. Let's see, the colors in this were actually really well done, especially for given the era it came out. Especially on some of the robot designs, like the way they colored the metal was really cool, especially on this character who's on the cover here. Her name is Tekla, has a really cool design, and then she's just pretty much chrome, but the way they color it is it's tastefully done. Still uses the like early 90s loud color palettes, but it's not as like harsh on the eye as other comics from this time can be, and it read pretty well in that sense. My favorite character in this is a robot called E7, who is just like picture like a Futurama looking robot, like pretty much
like your Bender.
But he wears a top hat and a vest, like a vest trench coat thing, and he's a like politician for this sect of robots.
Oh, like almost like a Uncle Sam type character.
But it's hilarious. They don't really explain that why he reads this, at least or why he looks like that, at least in this issue, but he's fun to look at.
So is not to get you off track at all, but the world building, at least from what you've gathered, is it sort of like robots? Is it like our Earth and robots are living on Earth with other humans, or is it more sci-fi in that it's like other planets or space stations?
From what I gathered researching it after reading this, it takes place in like the year 4000 on Earth, and it takes place in like a supercontinent, like megalopolis city, like the whole of North America is its own city. It's very like, it's based on a character, Magnus Robot Fighter, that came out in the 60s. So it's still kind of very like pulpy, like sort of like Buck Rogers-y. But yeah, there's a lot more going on story-wise than I picked up in this issue as far as relationships between humans and robots. But essentially, I think the main conflict is Magnus fights robots.
Magnus is a robot fighter.
So
the name sounds really familiar. I need to take a look at the interior and the cover a little bit.
It's a pretty fun book. Some notes on the created, or let's do some notes on the publisher. So I didn't know this, and people who are have a lot of history with comics probably do know this, but Valiant Comics was founded by former Marvel editor Jim Shooter in 1989 after a failed attempt to purchase Marvel Comics. He's a big name you hear about, especially in that era of Marvel.
That's like something I'm kind of figuring out is I'm starting to recognize names and starting to hear like the reverence in people's voices when they refer to certain people, even if I don't necessarily know all their story. But am I correct in remembering Jim Shooter is notable for like Silver Surfer and a lot of like the sort of Marvel cosmic. I think, did he work on the original, what became, Infinity War, the Infinity Gauntlet saga and all that?
I don't know, probably.
But because I feel like I've just at least seen somewhere or heard somewhere that like the dude loves either created and or just loves like Adam Warlock and sort of shoehorned him into a lot of those sort of cosmic stories because he liked the character so much. But yeah, the name sounds familiar. I'm just not really sure about all the...
And it sounds like he left Marvel, and it is a much broader story, I'm sure, but from what I could gather, he left Marvel because he kind of felt like he didn't have his finger on the pulse of kind of the creative side of the company anymore.
Neither did they, to be fair.
Yeah. He founded it with, who wound up being the editor on this, Bob Layton and some other folks. Founded Valiant Comics, and Magnus Robot Fighter was their first title they released under that publisher. And then released a few other, the most notable one I can think of is Turok, Dinosaur Hunter. I know that from the video game. I never read any of the comics, but that's the only recognizable title under Valiant that I recognize. And they licensed those characters from a different company to publish under their name. But Jim Shooter had left Valiant by the time this issue came out. I didn't really see much about why, but probably just creative differences or something along those lines. But yeah, and then the first appearance of this character, Magnus Robot Fighter, was in a title called Magnus Robot Fighter 4000 AD in 1963, published by Gold Key Comics.
The whole mix up behind the scenes with people, publishers closing or people leaving companies that they founded. Comics were sort of the early pioneer in that trend setting of it happens a lot in the video game industry nowadays, where essentially a developer makes some project, is unhappy either with how their distributor or their sort of parent company handled it, and then they break off, they form new company, they make a classic, somebody from that team gets upset for some reason, break off. It's kind of nice. It happens a lot more now of AAA studios going towards indie studios, especially in this era of comics when I wouldn't say the market was more favorable to smaller companies, but there was just the potential to start something. A lot of them ended up either in failure or in acquisition.
Yeah, and which eventually happened to Valiant. I know they got acquired, and I think they're still around in some form today, but not in the same way that when they first started.
Probably more likely an imprint where it's sort of hey, you remember these characters from Valiant Comics? We now own them.
But yeah, I mean, it's around the whole time of other people, notable names in the comic book industry going off to start their own thing, like Image and all that stuff. So it was probably in the era of just we don't have to be beholden to these two big publishers,
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the big two, both companies have had at the very least DC more, but at the very least 30 years of comic publishing, right? And you're sort of getting in that era when the upper people are getting mad that the lower people want to get paid more, when back in the day they were paying them cents for per page or per panel or per ink blot, whatever. It kind of makes sense that this is the era in which all that talent, left from the big two and went on to make Image, because it was a much more artist forward company. And I think that there's probably a lot of other offshoot, like you're saying this with Jim Shooter, that creative differences with Marvel. A lot of it comes from the actual people who are working, the artists, the writers, the colorists, the letters. It's all from the people who want to have either better working conditions or a better payment and want to see their talent valued higher than the goons at the top of the food chain are seeing it as.
Some other notable stuff from the creative team: John Ostrander, who wrote this one, co-created the character of Amanda Waller in Legends #1 from DC, which featured the Suicide Squad. He also co-created Barbara Gordon as the character Oracle with his wife, Kim Yale, who he co-wrote a lot with. He was a writer on a lot of the early 2000s Star Wars comics from Dark Horse as well, like Star Wars Republic, Star Wars Legacy, which we've both read, I think, a good chunk of those.
Oh, I'm a huge fan. John Ostrander's always one of those names I recognize, and it's always funny because I knew him forward as a Star Wars creator. A lot of like the best like Quinlan Voss content that existed in that early era comes from Josh Ostrander, and also like you mentioned him having involvement with Amanda Waller, but I think he also gets a lot of credit for sort of formulating what the Suicide Squad became to what we recognize them today.
Yeah.
Obviously not as one-to-one as it is now, but
kind of
the blueprint
MO around what the Suicide Squad is as a team now is kind of comes from this Legends run, I think.
Because it kind of was more beforehand. It was more of just like more spy stuff, more like government agent, Mission Impossible kind of stuff. And then I think when he came on board, or at least in the era that he came on board, is when they sort of shifted it closer to, hey, this is actually the villains team, and they're sort of dispensable. I'm a big fan of his stuff in the Star Wars content realm.
Yeah, and this is a well-written book from, like, there's still a contained arc within this book, but again, coming from it so late into the run, there's a lot that I'm missing, so it's hard for me to judge it in that regard too harshly or anything. But yeah, and then editor-in-chief for Valiant at the time, Bob Layton, he is the artist on the popular Iron Man run, Iron Man Demon in a Bottle, which explores Tony Stark's alcoholism. And it also, I don't know if it was from this run, but he co-created and introduced the character of Rhodey in eventually War Machine.
I feel like I've heard somewhere or read somewhere that like he never intended the character of Rhodey to necessarily either become War Machine or to become like a Tony Stark copycat. Like I think that happened beyond his control, but I think his intention was that he wanted to give Tony Stark like a human friend, like a normal person.
Well, I was reading an interview about that exact thing where he was talking about like he was kind of meant to be a very grounded, like different perspective than Tony, and like give him a kind of not a foil, but just someone to bounce against. That's like, yeah, I'm a very normal, regular guy who comes from a much different background and has many different experiences than you, and kind of help round Tony out in that regard instead of just being a rich alcoholic.
And then they kind of, I wouldn't say that they ruined that intention, but obviously it's a little less effective when he also becomes like an Iron Man. He kind of loses a little bit of that foil aspect, and more just becomes a mirror. I think the character War Machine is interesting, but I understand that frustration.
There were a few really interesting, kind of fun ads in this one. Number one, just off the top of my head, one that I liked the best was the movie poster, the classic movie poster from Army of Darkness.
One of the best.
Just cool. Just so cool. Some fun ones for Game Boy. There's a Mega Man 3 Game Boy ad in the front interior cover, and then in the rear interior cover is the Game Boy version of the Empire Strikes Back game, which is also fun to look at. A couple other just ads throughout the issue. There's something called like a Make My Video from Sega, which features the hip hop artist Criss Cross, which it's unclear what this is exactly, but it's like some sort of device that you can like record your own music videos or something. It's hard to explain. I'll show you.
Okay, I want to see. This was that era where, and it's funny because it's like everybody wants to be pre-YouTube, but everybody wants to sort of be, we're looking in a mirror, where like companies were realizing that kids were getting interested in film or in music, or I guess kind of trying to break that barrier between like it seeming something, sort of demystifying that process to kids. There was a lot of like make stop motions, like Lego was putting out in the 90s, like in early 2000s, like make stop motion videos. So it's kind of a fun element of the era.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting ad to see what they were trying to at least do with that type of more consumer available technology. The rest of the ads are mostly just other Valiant titles that were coming around the same time. One for Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, and then some other ones that I have not heard of or read. But look, interesting one called the Hardcore, like core like CORPS. That's an interesting name.
I feel like when we were doing our picks for this, I think I actually saw one or two of those in the bin. Might be fun to revisit that.
Yeah, I might check those out for a future episode.
The part of the show is also going to be like Davis did, just kind of mentioning some of the ads. Part of the fun of going through these old comics, especially of a certain era, is that ads galore. Depending on when you were born, there's some nostalgia factor there. I know a lot of the picks that I have, most of them came out before I was born, and so I don't necessarily have a nostalgia for what the ad is. It's more just I have a nostalgia for the fact that these ads exist and that they're showing this kind of stuff. Because even up to when I was growing up and reading like early Star Wars comics and stuff, like there was always fun ads for video games and other comics and movies and stuff. And so I have a really fond soft spot for that. And also there's like just elements of a bygone era. A lot of these have like the letter pages, or they have subscription pages where they dictate like every single issue that's coming out of a certain series. And there's something sort of really fun about looking back on that and just seeing just the amount of information that they were stuffing into some of those pages. I love the old ads. That's a big part of this show is it uncovering some of those things.
Some fun stuff, especially these older books. My overall rating on this, I would probably give it a 5 out of 10. Not bad. The art in it is nothing really to write home about, but it's still well done. The writing, same deal. A fun book. I don't know if I'll continue my Magnus robot fighter journey, but fun to check out, and yeah, kind of a cool capsule of that time for comics.
Yeah, the name sounds super, super familiar to me, and I don't know if it's just because I've enjoyed other sort of pulp fantasy sort of, even though he's not like public domain, like I love the idea of the public domain hero or just the public domain like classic character. Yeah, you just saying it kind of sounds like he's from that realm. I'll have to do some research on my own to see what I remember him from. Maybe they made like an action figure of him or something. And
probably.
I do want to take a look at this real quick.
A lot of the robot designs in this book are pretty cool. Feels very, very 90s, but yeah, well done. Pretty cool.
I like the newsprint.
Yeah, I think the newsprint kind of lends itself to these older issues of kind of preserving the vibe. Obviously, that's more or less what it looked like when it came out, but kind of just even with the aged paper, it kind of gives it a cool.
It's held up well.
feel.
I mean, I've seen some really kind of rough looking old comics in those dollar bins, but that's like a really clean copy.
Whoever had this before took good care of it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So for my first pick, I am going from sort of a worst to best lineup. I think you're doing the same thing. My issue is Ancient Enemies, Wraith and Sun. This is a one-shot. It is part of a ongoing, or not currently ongoing, but a once ongoing sort of larger storyline called Ancient Enemies. This is actually issue number 1. This was released in 2023. So this is a pretty new pick. I was actually really surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed just looking at the cover.
Yeah, it doesn't look old, but it has sort of a more kind of like 2010s aspect to it. The creative team behind this is written by Dan DiDio, who is a notable name in DC editing. I think there's a little bit of controversy with him. He left the company a little bit before 2023. This is art by Jim Calafiore, colors by Hi-Fi, and lettering by Carlos M. Mangual. The publisher, this is part of the reason why I picked this up. The publisher is Frank Miller Presents. That is the actual publishing company. Also sub-published by Dan DiDio. Editor is Frank Miller himself, alongside Leilani Ramos, and this is printed in Canada.
Interesting.
So obviously I picked this up because it had the Frank Miller name. Frank Miller is one of those people who is sort of synonymous with comics. You love him, you hate him, you fear him, you're concerned for him. There's many people that fall upon this spectrum of Frank Miller. I think we can all agree that when he's at his best, it's
good stuff.
It is good stuff, and when he is at its worst, it is incredibly misogynistic and or racist and or homophobic and not good.
Yeah.
Bad. Don't do that.
Stop it.
Stop doing that. Just write good stuff or cool stuff that looks like Sin City, at least. If it's going to be bad, make it look like Sin City. But I always find it interesting when sort of the big names either go off on their own or they do something else, or where to what extent does their stardom or their fame or their name take them, right? When it comes to Frank Miller Presents, unfortunately, not very far. Some kind of notes about the research I did for this. Frank Miller Presents was founded in 2022 by two longtime comic book icons. Frank Miller, of course, known for Batman Year One, excellent. Dark Knight Returns, excellent. Sin City, excellent. Daredevil, Man Without Fear, excellent. And also Dan DiDio, who is a longtime DC writer and editor. Dan DiDio, who he has even like come up sometimes, like in universe of DC. Just off the top of my head, like I feel like there was a story where like characters from the multiverse went into the real world and they met Dan DiDio, and then it turned out Dan DiDio was actually Darkseid in disguise. And I don't know if he knew that people were doing that about him, or if they're trying to say like he's a tyrant editor or what. I don't know personally. I don't know a lot of the story. I didn't do a lot of research into the maybe aspects of the controversy of Dan DiDio. Just the name was enough to get me interested in checking it out. Another interesting thing is hi-fi. Whenever I see a name, like an artist name or a pen name or something, I'm always want to research that specifically because either there's a story behind it or it's a pen name or something. Hi-Fi is actually the name of the coloring studio. It was started by Brian and Christy Miller in 1998. And so I guess anytime a colorist working for the Hi-Fi Color Studio, whenever they work on a book, they sign it under Hi-Fi. I don't know if that's a contractual thing.
Yeah.
Part of me doesn't like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's just sort of like that artistic preciousness that you have or wanting credit. Everybody wants credit for the things that they do. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I don't know if I like that necessarily either. I think that coloring is pretty frequently kind of not given the amount of credit it deserves for how much of an impact it has on just the overall reading experience and art experience. So I feel like the people who are contributing to that definitely deserve the credit for themselves. Again, if they're entering into this fully knowing that that's the deal and they're getting paid, like, sure, but that still just feels shitty.
Well, what's interesting, I'm actually going to kind of skip forward just a little bit and then I'll go into the comic itself. This is one of those issues where the behind the scenes is a lot more interesting than what's on the page. I was curious what had happened to Frank Miller Presents. Obviously, like 2023 is not that long ago. We're filming this in 2026, start of 2026. And I guess they just sort of went radio silent. They had stuff announced, didn't come out. Frank Miller Presents had a lot of projects announced. The publisher hasn't made any new material since 2023, around the time this was coming out. And then, according to my research, there is a company called Abrams Books. It's sort of like a large, sort of overarching umbrella term, and they had a lot of, like, I could just be speaking out of my butt here, but like my assumption is Abrams Books, and then like say they have like a cookbook division, or they have like a a software manual division. Like they too have like a comic art division, and they seemingly purchased Frank Miller Presents.
They have done nothing with it.
Like they've been putting out some extra versions of the books, like some updated reprints.
I feel like I've seen plenty of other books that say colored by Hi-Fi, and I guess I just always assumed it was a pen name for one person.
That's what I was assuming. Because sometimes people, like, a single person will have some sort of title under that. But jumping into the book itself, a very quick synopsis of this issue that I'll go over. In the gray city of Citadel, two criminals flee from the Wraith. After the conflict goes bad, the Wraith's life flashes before him. He was orphaned after an alien spaceship crashed into the planet, killing millions. After many years, he discovered his estranged mother still lived, and she was formerly the true identity of the Wraith. Having taken her suit and assumed the role, the new Wraith stalks the city. And this all just is backstory that happens like in this sort of life flash before his eyes moment. Flashing forward to when that moment's happening, he's about to get shot. A shot rings out. He thinks he's the one that's been shot. In fact, it is the assailant that has been killed, and he is saved by his mother wearing the other Wraith suit. And the two hash out their issues verbally and physically until the matter is settled. Very, like, that sounds like a lot of information. A lot of the issue is essentially like introduces this character, gives a whole backstory, introduces another character, gives their backstory. And this is all part of a larger world in this sort of Ancient Enemies title that Frank Miller Presents was doing. I did a little bit of research into like what that overall story is. I guess Earth becomes the battleground for two warring aliens, and in the ensuing conflict is what results in like giving people their powers. And I guess they have some way of affecting the overall conflict. You don't get a lot of that in this issue, to be honest, like a lot of the background. And I was actually way more interested in that stuff than what was actually here.
In the actual story of the book.
Yeah, unfortunately. Kind of a couple bits that I really liked, and it will kind of inform my overall feelings about the whole comic. I do like the background story. I do like this idea that like alien ships crashed into Earth and then led to the development of superpowers. I think that's kind of really interesting. There's a couple parts of the book that visualizes what that looks like, what it looks like to have two alien ships crashing into each other and then to the planet. That was really, really cool. And then I liked the dynamic between the mother and son superhero duo. I feel like that's not a relationship that you see a lot. They kind of set it up almost like his dad might be the other Wraith, but then it kind of does a twist and it's his mother instead. Yeah, it's just sort of a dynamic that you don't really see. There's a short story in the back, like maybe 2 or 3 pages that talks about the Wraith mother. And it actually shows the day that the alien ships crashed. I went from hating, like the art is different in that part than the rest of the book. I did not like the art in that part, except for the last 2 pages. And we'll show a couple of that on screen. Shows that scene, and that was like my favorite page of the whole book. So it's weird how this book kind of flip-flopped a lot for me of like I wouldn't be into it, and then like right after I finished it, I was like, I didn't really like that, but then I found myself thinking about it more after the fact. The last thing that kind of stood out to me is the costume is okay, but the power set is interesting. He sort of has that like invisibility sort of ghost cloaking, which I think is a really cool power if done really well. I think visually it's done really well. It's shown really well in this as sort of like a red outline specter, almost like if you saw how sometimes you can see like the Predator cloaking shift. It looks like that, but in red, and the Wraith character will sort of just hide behind bad guys and as they're freaking out, almost Batman style. But the costume design itself is really, it's a little lackluster. It feels, I don't know, it feels like they're trying to simultaneously do Invincible and Spawn. Like they're trying to do the clean cut version of like how Invincible has that sort of really clean, clear design work. But then also like they want it to look cool and edgy like Spawn. And I feel like
an edgy Frank Miller book.
Yeah. Other than editing it, I'm sure all he did was write
put his name on
it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because there really is not any like flair in here. Sort of last overall thoughts. It's not a bad comic by any means. Just a little lackluster. Story is interesting. The dialogue is clear and not clunky, which I appreciate. The art is serviceable, nothing exciting. I will say that the coloring and the lighting is actually really well done in this. That is something that stood out to me. Otherwise, it doesn't have a lot of personality. It very much feels like a C tier comic superhero story. Or it almost feels like the kind of fake comic that you would see in a movie that like an actual character liked. There's something about like it just feels something about
something
it feels
a
fake.
screenwriter decided to make up was an established character in their movie,
exactly.
An established comic property in their movie.
Like it feels like this is a character that Mark Grayson would read, not a character that exists in that series, but one that exists as a character in that series. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Overall, 5 out of 10. I picked it up solely because I was curious what Frank Millerism it had, and to be honest, the story behind the story was a lot more interesting to me. Like it's not bad. Like I like that. Like that's a cool page. I like the lighting, and we're gonna be showing some of this on screen.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about how they depict him when he's invisible. Looks cool.
Like it's the kind of comic that if I made, I'd be really proud of because like my skill level is so low But then as a fan of comics, there's a lot more interesting things to check out. See, like this stuff, this page, and then the following one are, I think, the most successful. Like, that's cool. Like a shot of two alien spaceships sort of crashing into each other and then descending on the planet. Like, that's a really cool concept, a really cool idea. But I'll be honest, it didn't give me a lot of, barring like a minor curiosity, it didn't make me want to check out more ancient enemies. Frank Miller Presents has a website that you can go check out a lot of their sort of covers, variant covers, and you kind of get an idea of what's in store, and it's all looks like this. This is the most you comic I've ever like if this was in a lineup of comic books and I was told to pick which one you picked up, I would definitely pick this one.
This was definitely one that I just saw the cover and was like, no second thought at all. I was just like, yep.
I don't even need to see the rest of it. Yep. I just have to get in there.
But anyways, my second pick is a one-shot comic from Source Point Press called Turkey Day. This is a fun horror comic critiquing how the typical American Thanksgiving mythology heavily alters the actual historical events of the Pilgrims arriving on the continent by having a hostile alien invasion take place during a small town's Thanksgiving Day pageant. This was a lot of fun. It's really funny and also kind of really disturbing. Fun art style and line work in this. It's very loose, kind of sketchy line work, which is fun to look at. It's not super clean, but it's still well done. The horror and the comedy usually works pretty well. Some research about this. I couldn't find a ton on the creative team online for this one. It's written by David C. Hayes, Brian Dunphy, and Dan Gorman. Pencils and inks by Brian Dunphy, colors by Dan Gorman, and lettering by Brian Dunphy. Editor-in-chief is Travis McIntyre, and the art director is Joshua Werner. The publisher is Source Point Press, which I found online. They're just a small publisher that puts out creator-owned books in the horror and pulp genre. Not lots of info, again, about the actual creative team on this that I could find, or the book itself. But there's several other titles from Source Point Press that looked interesting, kind of up my alley of just that fun, pulpy kind of... Just
having fun,
Yeah.
And I think the horror genre, like, it's one of those... it's just the genre that gets to have a lot of fun. It kind of... The creativity is sort of endless when it comes to horror, just because when you either expect schlock, there's always either the room to deliver that or to like iterate on it to make it a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it definitely it leans into the goofy, silly bits, but also does tell an interesting story here. The main character is I believe a high school history teacher who has written stuff for this Thanksgiving Day pageant that is more historically accurate that he's excited to see. He goes to it and realizes they've thrown all that out and they're just doing the typical, like, everyone was friends and got along and they taught us how to cook turkey and grow corn. On top of this, these aliens arrive and they take over a turkey farm. And so the turkey become the hosts.
Oh, so it's like a body snatchers type thing.
And so you can see their eyes popping out. The aliens are just little eyeballs and they pop out the side of the eyes of the turkeys. And the turkeys just go around and start killing everybody. And then they show up to this Thanksgiving Day pageant, and this history teacher has noticed that these turkeys are killing everybody, and he tries to raise the alarm on that, and everyone just goes, nah, we're fine. They're just turkeys. Like, it's great. Which inevitably, of course, goes poorly. Spoiler alert, the aliens take over Earth. Everybody dies. Every single human character dies. And there's a fun splash page on the very last page of the issue that's kind of a take on the Norman Rockwell Thanksgiving. But it's a bunch of turkeys eating people.
That's really fun. I actually kind of unironically love that painting.
It's a great painting. I mean, Norman Rockwell stuff is classic for a reason.
Yeah.
It throws jabs at kind of just that
the revisionist history aspect of
how we celebrate and talk about what happened on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. The white people didn't hurt the Native Americans. They wanted to leave.
They hated that they had this whole big country all to themselves.
The horror Thanksgiving genre is one that is very small, but like, if I had a nickel for every time I've seen a horror and or turkey themed storyline about Thanksgiving, I would actually have like maybe 50 cents.
Yeah, a few nickels.
Like, it happens a lot more in movies, at least that I've seen. I don't think I've ever seen a Thanksgiving comic book. That's really fun. Underappreciated comic holiday. The ones I am most familiar with Thanksgiving horror is There's a really, really bad movie called Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And there's like a killer, like puppet killer turkey. And it's like meant to be like an incredibly like raunchy, crude, like grotesque movie. I've never officially watched that movie. I've watched like creator I used to watch did like sort of a Mystery Science Theater version of it where like you watch it alongside their commentary. And it was grotesque and disgusting. Do you like Thanksgiving?
I mean, I like the tradition of having a nice big dinner with my family. I don't love the
historical history.
the inaccurate historical depiction of those events. I remember learning about took me all the way to get to college to learn about how pilgrims treated people when they got here, and it was just horrific, you know. Which really kind of removed any sheen I had left over from that.
No, I think the sentimentality behind it is good, obviously. If I didn't absolutely love having an additional holiday so close to another big holiday, I would say we should abolish Thanksgiving. But because it plays a necessary role in like making the tail end of the year better for people who get those days off, then it can stay. If I had to take out a holiday, I think I would actually take out Thanksgiving. It means nothing to me.
Yeah. I like the practice of Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well,
I don't like
it's essentially just Christmas dinner Eve.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like there's nothing, like obviously I like all the food, but like every year I get more and more like dreading of like the same thing over and over and over again. So
it's at least not something that, at least for me growing up, it's not like we have Thanksgiving and then we're like, okay, now we're going to talk about the story of the Pilgrims.
Yeah, no one's reading it. Definitely not in my family.
Yeah.
There weren't any historical reenactments or. Also, like that's another thing that happens in a lot of these stories is like these small towns are throwing these pageants for Thanksgiving. Obviously, like there's the Thanksgiving parade.
Thanksgiving is the whole reason our town exists.
Yeah, like I love when
very Hallmark movie.
Yeah, like. I don't think I've ever, obviously those things exist, but I don't think I've ever been like, oh, it's the turkey ball this year, like gobble, gobble. Nothing like that. Like it just has such a horrible, Thanksgiving has a horrible aesthetic to it other than like the fall aspect. Like you can't just co-opt the colors of autumn and say that's your holiday colors.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Thanksgiving, this one's for you.
My overall rating on this, I would give the book a 7 out of 10. It's fun. It's a good read. I like that it is just a one-shot and it's a self-contained story. Yeah, it's a good book.
That's a good find for a dollar store bid.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't say what year. This came out in 2021.
I saw that.
So
that's interesting.
It's a newer book. Looking at the art, I kind of would have thought earlier, maybe 2010-ish. But yeah, no, it's a well done little book.
The art almost has like it's very cartoony. Like not cartoony in the like Saturday morning cartoon, but like the actual art of cartooning.
Yeah. Closer to like what you might see in a newspaper strip.
And also kind of not in style, but just like, I don't know, it kind of has like that sort of Simpsons, late night animation sort of like, like the character designs are sort of like super stylized to make fun of people. No, I was not expecting this art whatsoever, but I like it. Fun.
Yeah, it's a cool book. And then, there's not really any ads in this, but there's some promotional stuff for other Switchpoint press titles.
That's something that I've come to appreciate about sort of creator forward, I guess, indie comics and reading them, especially modern ones. If you hate ads,
they're not really in them anymore.
Get an indie comic.
Yeah.
Because at most they're going to be either showcasing other stuff that they've made, which is always good. Always promote yourself. Always be your best. You got to be your best advocate for yourself. I'm always like surprised. I don't know. I just think it's really kind of special to if you're gonna buy a brand new comic and you're gonna drop like $4 or $5, the fact that you get a book that has a full story, uninterrupted, you get all those pages. Like it's not a huge book, but it's not a small book by any means. So I think that like you're getting a lot. Obviously, these are dollar bin picks, but like if you were to buy something like that, you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah, I would have spent full price for a new issue.
Yeah, you go back and you could give them $10 in a Thanksgiving turkey. For my second pick, my second favorite of the dollar store picks, we have Ultraverse, the Nightman. This issue is called Solitary. This is part of the series of Ultraverse / the Nightman. Ultraverse is a larger sort of property. This is issue number 9. It was released in June of 1994. And the creative team involved is author Steve Englehart. He is the sort of credit for creating Nightman. And then additional concepts and characters come from Derek Robertson. The artists for this issue are Kyle Holtz, lettering by Susan Dorn, color design by Mickey Rose, and interior coloring by Food Hammer.
Wow.
Yep.
Talk about a pen name.
This is published by Malibu Comics of Malibu Comics Entertainment Incorporated. It is edited by Roland Mann, and it is printed in the U.S. So I did a little bit of research onto the creative team. The person that stuck out the most to me is Steve Englehart. I didn't put as much information, but he has like sort of a long history of working with Marvel and DC, sort of during essential eras. So he's a name that's just been kind of present throughout a lot of comics. Everyone else that I looked into, I didn't really see a lot. I tried to do some research on Food Hammer, and nothing came up.
Really?
Like, this is just hyper-specific name for nothing to come up.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a pen name of some kind. This is sort of like that iconic 90s era when everything had a lot of flair and grit and flow to it. And I kind of respect the hell out of this comic for it. I kind of really like this comic and also don't care about it at the same time. So quick story synopsis. The story starts with this lowlife. His name is Apokoloff. He is allegedly a werewolf. We do not see him turn into a werewolf. We are just told he is a werewolf. Likely a previous issue, he was locked up. He speaks to another prisoner who's about to get out, essentially gives him a message. This other prisoner takes this message to a man named J.D. Hunt, who is probably another established character in this series. J.D. Hunt is dispatched to free the werewolf from incarceration. He does so by taking control of a giant robot called Tech Knight, which this is, I'm sure, pre The Boys, in which I think they do also do a Tech Knight, which is like their Batman analog, Batman, Iron Man analog. I think this is pre that. So he takes control of this robot, he sends it to free the guy, and the titular character, Nightman, must stop it. The robot is like almost undefeatable. They get out of the precinct. They're about to get away when a mysterious figure aids Nightman, and we come to find out that it is Nightman's father, who is a police officer. So if you were maybe reading this from the very beginning, that might have been like a crazy reveal. I don't know. I only have the context of this single issue. That's part of what the show fun is does it stand alone as its own? No. It's very confusing. It is incredibly confusing. I think what is there is good and interesting. So we're going into some of my favorite bits about it to discuss it more. The art and character design is top notch. Even if it's not necessarily good, it's fun. It totally captures that era. And for me, I kind of respect when an original creation takes on that 90s flair and that 90s grit, because it works so much better than trying to like shoehorn it into a classic character.
Thing. Yeah.
Like Spawn works because Spawn was created to be that. If Spawn was like normally not like that, I don't know, maybe it would be different. But because the intention was always to be that from the beginning, it works so much better for me than if you were to like 90s-ify Spider-Man or when you 90s-ify like all the DC characters and give them sort of these insane outfits. I think the only team that works in 90s is X-Men. Because they're always been like have ridiculous design. They've always been kind of weird looking, and I think that they can kind of pull it off more so than some of the other iconic characters.
Well, and a lot of their redesigns for the 90s were an improvement on their existing designs.
Absolutely.
Like thinking like Cyclops, specifically Rogue. Like they just, that kind of becomes their iconic. Like that's what you think of when you think of them.
Exactly. It works so much better for them. In fact, there's so the Ultraverse is sort of a larger sort of series. Continue with my favorite bits. I really like the coloring in this book. It's really clean. It's really clear. You talked about this a little bit in, I think, your first first topic, Magnus Robot Fighter. Sometimes in the 80s and the 90s, coloring would either be very, very additive into what it gave the comic, or it was incredibly like subtractive, and you would just get these garish colors where it's just like, oh, this is an eyesore to look at. This is not an eyesore to look at. This is actually a very, very fun, easy on the eyes book, and I really appreciate that. It fits well with the story. Everything has like sort of a cohesive look to it. I will say that the Tech Knight design is really, 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 really cool. I really, really like. I'll show you in a second. But the Nightman suit, it's almost there for me. It's almost there for me, and there's an inside joke about it, I think. Nightman has like one bug eye. Like the suit does, not the character. And I'm assuming it's like a running joke, or either people have commented about not liking it because at the very end of the issue, when he is approached by his father and they have that sort of reunion and that reveal of each other, his father goes, "So what's with the eyes?" And the son goes, "Well, it's kind of a funny story," and the issue ends. I don't know if that is, if they have, if issue 10 is the backstory of the bug eye, but like there's a lot of style with the Nightman suit itself. That just one aspect I'm just not really into. But he's very, you can tell he's very like inspired by Spawn.
Yeah.
Especially because he has like a flowing cape, not like a living flowing cape, but he has a flowing cape. It has all this sort of tatters that make a character like that really fun to draw. So while there isn't a lot in this issue, like I said, it's kind of confusing being so detached from everything else. I respect the hell out of any sort of publisher that can do a shared universe or even attempts it, right? With DC and Marvel, they have the benefit of building upon decades upon decades upon decades, and then even being able to acquire new characters, introduce them into like the base canon, the base continuity. They have the history behind it. So when you're a starting company and you have like you launch with the sort of interconnected universe, I really respect it because I have dreams of doing that myself. Like I would love to, tell stories from across a shared universe all together. I just respect it. And I think it works better when it's your own creation than if you're trying to shoehorn it in with pre-existing characters.
I think you can tell with this early stuff, maybe like, especially from like the 70s on, they were kind of the first ones to figure out how to do that. And we see that so much in like TV and movies now. But like, yeah, figuring out how do I make this work with all these different characters? They had a little bit of background, but I can respect it, especially for these older comics where they're like, there's not like a lot to pull from on how to do that, Yeah,
it's essentially just creating analogs for other characters that are owned by more popular, more profitable companies. But hey, there can be a lot of fun in sort of that ingenuity. I mean, some of the best characters of both Marvel and DC are rip-off counterparts of each other. Or I wouldn't say some of the best, but some of the iconic ones. Obviously, a lot of people point to like the Deathstroke,
Deadpool
being the originator of Deadpool. Deathstroke, just for the record, is way cooler than Deadpool.
Agreed.
Don't attack us, please.
We're not anti-Deadpool, but we're more pro-Deathstroke, I think.
Yeah, this is a pro-Deathstroke household. I have a little bit of sort of research material that I'd like to go over. So the Ultraverse is a shared universe launched by Malibu Comics, the publisher of this issue. That universe was launched in 1993. Fun fact, in 1994, Malibu Comics was purchased by Marvel Comics. They purchased Malibu exclusively so they could acquire their in-house coloring team.
Interesting.
I also wonder if that's why I couldn't find any research about the colorist Food Hammer, because either they're defunct or they only existed for a short time.
For a 10-issue run or something.
I don't know when in 1994 they acquired, so I wonder if this was being acquired by Marvel. There is no Marvel signage at all in this issue, so I'm assuming so. So yeah, maybe post-Marvel acquisition, Food Hammer was no more.
RIP.
But what's interesting about Marvel acquiring Malibu is it wasn't just like, oh, hey, we want to hold publishing rights. These characters were actually introduced into Marvel Comics. So technically, the Ultraverse characters are Marvel characters. They exist in their own universe. They have their own sort of like Earth designation. And a lot of the time, they would actually cross over with each other. In fact, there's a Nightman versus Wolverine comic out there somewhere that I'm kind of curious to see.
Will Nightman return in Avengers Doomsday?
Well, and sadly, that kind of reminds me is sadly the last time that Nightman ever existed in an issue was with a Gambit crossover. His story concludes in a Gambit crossover.
That's lame.
That is lame. So this is issue 9. The series went on for 22 issues before it concluded with that Gambit miniseries. So Nightman, technically a Marvel character. In doing my research, some of the creators were asked if Nightman would ever appear, and they pretty much were like, it's not going to happen. I think there's licensing issue, like even though they own the rights to certain characters, I guess the way that they had made that deal back in the day made it so making payments to creative teams would be difficult, or the estates of creative teams would be difficult. So knowing Marvel, they don't like to pay anyone. They like making money. They don't like to spend it, especially on people like artists.
Yeah.
They really don't like doing that. And so I know I don't foresee these guys ever coming back. But some things I do want to check out is apparently there's an animated series about Ultraverse, and there's a 2-season long live action Nightman TV show.
We should see if we can find that.
I was thinking that might be a fun thing to react to down the line. Either an episode of the series, of the animated series, or the live action TV show, which I guess the first couple episodes were written by the author of this. Steve Englehart was able to write all 22 issues, which again,
nice.
That's really cool, especially if you either originated the character or have a strong ties to a character. I think that's something that we don't give creatives enough time with today, is they don't get a lot of room to work with their book, especially maybe if they don't have their footing right away. Obviously that's not the case for everyone, but sometimes the creative teams get pulled from books or things happen before they're able to sort of showcase their...
They're not given the same amount of runway really to get it off the ground. And
well, back in the day, I mean, you were having like the same artist would draw hundreds of issues of the same thing, of the same issue, and they get a lot of time with those characters. I feel like nowadays it's sort of like you get, if you're lucky, you get like a mini series of 6 issues to work with, and if people like it, it grows from that. But yeah, I don't know. I just respect that a creative was able to hold dominion over his creation for so long. So my overall thoughts, this is one for the eyes, not for the mind. Ultimately, the story is fine. It's a bit difficult to follow this far into the narrative. The dialogue is ridiculous. Like, just straight up, sorry, nothing against you, Steve. I'm sure you're a lovely person. Like, I don't know if it's meant to be intentionally campy, like if they're kind of going for that, or if it's just like a byproduct of the era. I would say it feels very juvenile. And not juvenile in like a maturity sense, like, oh, they're making really dumb jokes or it has crude humor. It really doesn't have any of that. It just feels like if you were to ask a 14-year-old boy in the 90s to make a character, it feels like it would be this. It's not bad. I think it works better. I think the 90s grit works better for a new character versus a pre-established character. Yeah, not a bad book at all. Hard to follow. Doesn't feel standalone as an issue. The art is fun. The text lettering is actually really good. And I really like the SFX throughout. I feel like that's kind of a factor that, unless it's really stand out, people don't mention. Like Daniel Warren Johnson is one of those people that like SFX is so intrinsically tied to the art that you have to love it. I wouldn't go as far to say for that in this. But like there's like a fun part when either like a water pipe breaks and it spills water out and it has this like whoosh effect, and one of the characters is sort of framed within the whoosh, and I like that. I think that's really creative. This for me is a 6 out of 10. Nice. So a little bit better than Wraith and Son. I think it has a little bit more going for it in the art department, but overall, other than being like a curiosity, I don't foresee myself delving into Nightman anymore than maybe checking out the crossover with Wolverine and maybe some of this Ultraverse stuff.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of like fun ad stuff in here, with the exception of there's a poster for Little Big League. Nice. I'm going to start making a sort of a letterbox playlist of all the movies that appear in these comic pages. I wish I would have found more, but that's the only one so far. Yeah, see, this is Tech Knight. Tech Knight looks really cool.
That's crazy.
Like he's like has these like ram horns. There'll be some pictures on screen for this. The police officer essentially is like, we're not going to help you. Like, you operate out of the law. And Nightman just goes, that's fair. It just is really weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, Like,
Okay.
sure.
You say so.
You got a good point there, officer. Like, it just seems weird to me.
Yeah, because pretty cool panel. Him in front of the moon.
This is one that I'm going to scan.
Does look very much like what I would assume a 90s Nightman would look like. I think Tech Knight looks pretty freaking sick.
Yeah. Like, I don't hate the look for Nightman, but the bug, I don't like the single bug eye. I don't mind asymmetry. I think asymmetry in design is actually really good, especially if done well. But in this case, it's not done well.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
So this is kind of an important thing that I didn't find out until doing research, because it obviously doesn't talk about it in this issue. So now that you've looked at this, you've looked at the Nightman. Mm-hmm. Do you have any guesses on either A, what he either moonlights as or what he did before, or B, how he obtained his powers?
I'm gonna go like security guard or
security guard.
Some sort of like nocturnal job.
Nocturnal job, okay. What about how he got his power? Any guesses? How does the Nightman... Because it doesn't... I think he's strong. Mm-hmm. There's no illusion to like what he does. He talks about having a taser. Like, he shoots the taser.
He's just a cop.
Yeah. He shoots the taser at Tech Knight, and he goes, well, that didn't work. Like he goes, that's the only thing I have. Of like, in issue 9 of your 22 issue, you have a taser.
That's fair.
Yeah. Sorry.
I guess I'll leave. Yeah, I don't know. I have no clue.
So, according to my research, the Nightman was originally, I can't remember his normal name, but he ran under the name of Jimmy Domino, I think, and he was a saxophone player.
Sick.
The Nightman was a saxophone player.
Hell yeah.
And apparently how he and many others gained their powers in the Ultraverse is, I guess, I'm trying to remember, it was like, I think it was called the Jumpstart. There was something called the Jumpstart that electrified a tram with a bunch of people on it, and they turned them all into superheroes, which they call Ultras. So, Nightman, he's a saxophone player
coming home from a gig or something.
Yeah, going down the tracks, just trying to get home, and boom, you're a superhero now.
That's fine.
There's also, with Marvel acquiring Ultraverse, they did a really kind of fun back cover where they were doing Countdown to Ultraforce, and they kind of have like that X-Force sort of aesthetic to their costumes and everything. They even call it like giant size, so obviously a reference to X-Men. But overall, not a bad comic. 6 out of 10. I know Davis is pulling up his next one. I do want to mention there is sort of like a letters page in the back of this. And the one thing that stuck out that I thought was really cool is, I guess this was around the time that Jack Kirby passed away. And I guess Malibu Comics was one of the few to do like a really, really early sort of in memoriam to Jack Kirby. And I love Jack Kirby, and anytime I read anything about him, I'm like, yeah, this guy's the best. I thought I would add that to this, and one of the lines in here really stuck out to me. He said, "How can we let this man who gave everything he had to the comic book industry pass with anything but the utmost respect? We lost something very special the day Kirby died, and we may never get it back." I'm like, that's really powerful, really special.
If they're correct, I don't know if we ever had another one.
No, I think he's just sort of an unparalleled talent, and thankfully nowadays, I think all comic creators sort of like
I give him his flowers.
Give him the utmost respect that he deserves. I wish he could have experienced it in his life.
Okay, my third pick is my favorite one of my 3 for this episode. It's The Blue Flame, issue number 1 by Vault Comics. I picked this one up because I just really like that cover.
This has a very classic looking. I'm trying to think. It looks very much like the Tom King Human Target art style. I know he didn't make that art, but that's really cool. I really like that.
This cover's done by...
That's a thick book, too.
Yeah. Cover's done by Yoshitani. Does not really match the interior art. The interior art is by Adam Gorham. Gorham? Really good work throughout the book. This one, again, a lot of our picks for this show are going to be very much judging a book by its cover. I thought this was really cool, well done. It's obviously a more modern book. It was published by Vault Comics, came out in May 2021.
I was gonna say, it looks really crisp.
Yeah, it's a pretty new book. Written by Christopher Cantwell. Artist Adam Gorham. Colorist Kurt Michael Russell. Letterer Hassan Otsmane El How. Hope I said that correctly. People probably know Vault Comics. They're an American comic publisher known mostly for horror, fantasy, and sci-fi titles. The only other book that I've read that Vault has published is Barbaric. I don't know if you've heard or read that. That's a fun book, worth checking out for sure. Mm-hmm. Creative team notes. So, interior art done by Adam Gorham. He's an artist on several other titles, still working, obviously, including one that I found. He's done many covers for a title called Jughead the Hunger, which is a horror comic set in the Archie universe, mm-hmm. where Jughead is a werewolf. And there's like some deep family lore about why he's so hungry all the time. So,
are you not to tangent? Are you an Archie guy?
I used to really like Archie.
Like you'd read the comics and stuff.
I had a friend who had a lot of Archie comics, so I'd borrow a lot from him.
Gotcha.
Would read them a lot, so they're pretty fun. Growing up, just as like an 11-year-old, I'd read a lot of Archie. I
mean, I would always look at the covers and stuff. I feel like when you're in the checkout line in sort of the 90s and 2000s, and every checkout register had like the fake, I'm not going to say fake news, but like legit
like
tabloid. Yeah, like literally falsified fantasy stuff, right? Mm-hmm. They'd have those kind of books. They'd have your Reader's Digest, and then there'd always be either like a small sort of like Archie comic.
Mm-hmm. I feel like those were really the only comics I can remember growing up being available in like a grocery store checkout line. So I feel like by the time we were kids, pretty much everything had gone direct market just to comic book shops.
Oh, absolutely. Like my dad grew up in the era where he was going to, he had a family member who worked at like a nearby pharmacy, and they had comics mm-hmm. on the rack there. So he would go there, meet up with his family member, and then read comics off the stand and stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's why I remember seeing the Archies, because as a kid, you're bored out of your mind. You're obviously mm-hmm. not going to help your parents, grocery store in the checkout line at mm-hmm. all. And I think that was always drawn to Archie because I'm like, oh, hey, this has stuff I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. Like, not talking about Paris Hilton being an alien or something. Yeah. Like, I don't know what that even means. Who is that person?
But I like these cartoons.
Yeah, but I like this.
Yeah.
This guy's funny hat.
It might be fun to explore in some sort of future episode or video, just kind of, go and do a deep dive retrospective into some of the Archie stuff.
Well, it's like, it's always been around, right? It's always existed throughout my whole life. And so you pick up on small things here and there, but to me, it just seems like it's a buck wild universe.
And this was around the time when this Jughead, the Hunger thing came out. I want to say it started coming out in like 2017, which I think was about the time that they started doing like Riverdale and all the weird edgy reboots for Archie.
I mean, honestly, like here's a small fact about me. If you make a YouTube video and it is longer than an hour, it does not matter what the topic is about. I will probably watch it because that means it's an hour where I can just, work on writing something or drawing something and don't have to figure out something else for background news.
Videos, yeah.
So I watched maybe a dozen sort of Riverdale deep dive videos. I couldn't tell you a single thing about the show. I think it's a great idea.
It's not a good show.
It is not a good show.
My wife has watched it, and I've seen some of it with her. It's bonkers. It is off the rails. It's crazy.
It's just absolutely insane. Yeah. But I kind of love it for that. Like mm-hmm. I don't actually care for the show. I have no feelings towards it, but I kind of respect that they went for it. I mean, it makes more sense to do like a gritty sort of teen drama versus like having Archie fight Predator, mm-hmm. which they do.
Yeah.
Like I maybe we got to read that. Maybe you're right. Maybe we do an Archie deep dive. For the 0 viewers that are watching right now, if you have any Archie recommendations, let us know.
Because the ones I've read have always just been like, oh, I got 2 dates to the dance.
Very slice of life of like,
oh, the big game's coming up and I lost my cleats or something.
I forgot my dad's birthday.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
All that kind of like slice of life stuff.
Anyways, back into Blue Flame. Adam Gorham's also done some cool stuff on some of the Star Wars Darth Vader runs. I checked out his Instagram. He's got a lot of good stuff on there, so I gave him a follow there.
Do you know which when Marvel reacquired the Star Wars line, I was really on board for a couple of years. I haven't been able to keep up.
I think it was later. It was further down into the run. I don't know how many he's done. I remember seeing covers for the one where it's like it's Amidala. It's Princess Amidala, the orange one where she's kind of got the...
Okay, it's probably... So, from my recollection, they did an early series that took place post-episode 4, and then they did a series that took them post-episode 3. And then they've now filled them in a couple more gaps. So I wasn't sure. There's been a lot of Vader series. Darth Vader is like actually one of the... Go figure, one of the most popular characters that Marvel Comics is like putting out issues for. And in my opinion, other than a couple like miniseries and a couple original characters, I think he's the only character that they're really legacy character that they're really handling well and making them really interesting.
The writer on this is Christopher Cantwell, who, upon doing some research, found out he's one of the two creators of the show *Halt and Catch Fire* that AMC put out, and he was the showrunner on that. So,
did you watch that show?
I watched the
first season.
About the first season, I think. Yeah, it's good.
I like the cast a lot. I mean, obviously, I'm a big Lee Pace fan. I've always liked him in Pushing Daisies, and it's funny because he only plays a nice guy in Pushing Daisies. He's literally like a jerk in every single other thing that he's in. And then Mackenzie, I can't remember her last name, but Mackenzie, the main...
Mackenzie Davis?
I can't... Yeah, but she's like in Blade Runner 2049. Yeah. And then, of course, everyone's favorite, Scoot McNairy.
He's really good in that show.
He's really good in that show, but he is...
he's a wiener. If I remember, his character's kind of a wiener.
Yeah. That guy sucks, though, in Batman vs. Superman. He's the
guy in the courtroom.
Yeah. Poor Spook.
Grandma's peach tea.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Scoot McNairy. You deserve better.
Rip wheelchair. Scoot McNairy. He's got a lot of other comic titles. Christopher Cantwell does as well, including some work on Doctor Doom and on the Star Wars Obi-Wan run. But anyways, getting into the Blue Flame. I'll probably just read the back here. It has a really good story synopsis. This is called Chapter 1, Tears of the Geodynamo. It says, the Blue Flame is a cosmic hero. The Blue Flame is a DIY vigilante that fights crime on the streets of Milwaukee. And the Blue Flame is a blue-collar HVAC repairman named Sam Browsome. In the wake of a horrific tragedy, the boundaries of the Blue Flame's identity blur even further. Now, before a universal trial, the Blue Flame must prove that humanity is worth saving. But in order to do that, Sam Browsome has to save himself. Can he?
Ooh.
It's a really interesting book. It kind of takes you, like in the way that synopsis does. You start out in it very, like Buck Rogers' space adventure, like just big, cool splash pages of space and this planet that he's exploring. And then you're taken to, it's unclear yet in the series if this is like taken back in time or something, but then you're taken to him as a DIY vigilante in Milwaukee with this team of other superheroes that you see on the cover. It's really cool. And then, I won't spoil it, but near the end, there's an event that takes place that kind of throws everything into question, and you're like, okay, what is actually going on here? It's a really cool book.
Yeah, I might have to check that out.
This so far is my favorite one of the ones I've picked for this episode. So I'm gonna plan to continue it. Like I said earlier, the cover really caught my eye on this one, even though it's different than the interior art. But the interior art is really well done. And the ending really left me wanting to read more. There's one cool thing on the interior cover here. There's a QR code for an original score that someone made for the comic, which I thought was really cool. Unfortunately, the QR code didn't work, but I was able to still find it by Googling it. It's just an acoustic piano score, which is probably more just like, here's an idea. If this ever got picked up into like an animated show or something, here's some music we could base off. I
love that because it shows that like people are not necessarily thinking about it in like we're gonna turn this into like a $1 million franchise. Like you just can see that people have like a sort of unbounded creativity, and when they love a project, they're going to kind of put their all into it. I mean, you're a musician yourself and stuff, and you've made music to tie in with sort of your artistic projects and stuff. So I think that's a cool connection.
Yeah, it was really cool to see it. Shout out Aaron Fisher, who's the musician on this, composer for it. It's a really cool piano score. I found it on Bandcamp. I only listened to the first few tracks on it just because it's for the whole series. So there's
you can listen to it as you go through. I love when that's a unique take on it. I love when people match media together, be it either an original score for a comic book. That's really cool. More often I've seen, like one of my favorite series is the Scott Pilgrim series. And in the classic sort of original printing, the more manga style printing of those, Brian Lee O'Malley would include sort of playlists of music that he was listening to when he was making that. And I always love checking that stuff out. It's really informative just on the work, but also just like, it's always fun when you can see where a creative got an idea. Like one of the songs that inspired Scott Pilgrim is literally a song called Scott Pilgrim. Like his name comes from the song. So it's fun to have that sort of information available to you as a reader. I don't know. To me, at least in the case of Scott Pilgrim, it helps you see the creator more as like just another person. Like, oh, this guy likes to listen to music like I do. He likes to be inspired by other forms of media.
And there's a really cool, good playlist for Murder Falcon that Daniel Warren Johnson put together too. Of I don't know if it's managed to be like different songs for different moments in the book, but it's just what he put together of just like, this is what I was listening to that inspired moments in the book, which works because Murder Falcon is such
a music heavy.
It's based around the idea of essentially having a familiar that comes out when you're playing your instrument.
So cool.
Great book. I know we talked about him a lot in the other video too. He's gonna come up all the time, but yeah, it's cool seeing that included here, and that they're allowing other artists to like contribute to a project in a unique way. So yeah, I'd give this one an 8 out of 10. It was a good book. I'm gonna try to keep up with it, and I'm sure it's complete by now, but I'm gonna try to find other titles for the other books in the series and keep reading it. Yeah. Vault is doing good stuff.
All right, for my final issue, you might be noticing that there's been a slight set change. This is my final pick, and this is my favorite one. Surprisingly, this is Atari Force. This has a really, really fun sort of backstory I'll get into in a little bit. Let me first talk about the creative team. This is Atari Force. This issue is titled Berserk for a very specific reason. There's an ongoing series there was a limited series of Atari Force that later went on to have a longer ongoing series. But this is part of that first wave. This came out in 1982. This issue is essentially issue 2. It's titled Part 2, Chapter 1. And I haven't mentioned this for all the books, but for ones I think it's interesting. This has 50 pages,
wow,
including the front and back cover. 50 pages.
That's impressive.
And the only ad is on the very back page.
Wow.
Like the literal back cover. So that's an incredible feat, especially for such a small package. The author, this is created and written by Jerry Conway and Roy Thomas. The art, visual concept arts by Ross Andrew, Dick Giordano, Mike DiCarlo, coloring by Adriana Roy, and designed by Neil Posner. The editor, also Dick DiGiorno. Dick
DiGiorno.
It's not Dick, it's DiGiorno. Published by DC Comics in collaboration with Atari, obviously, and printed in the US. I'm kind of jumping around a lot with this. So I actually really, really love this comic. There's a lot to talk about. I think the backstory is just as interesting as what's inside, which is surprising. I feel like it's either one or the other in the previous issues that I've covered. I want to talk about a little bit of the backstory behind where these things come from. So obviously Atari was an early video game and home computer developer. They released many classics, Pong, Asteroid, Centipede, Pac-Man, etc. Sort of, I think you can say one of the first, or at least one of the most iconic sort of early adapters of video games and putting them in the home. This was a comic that came as supplemental material and specially marked Atari 2600 game cartridges.
That's cool.
So the second I saw this, I knew I had to grab it. Not because I'm an Atari fan. In fact, I've never had an Atari. I've never played an Atari. Not even like the classic, where they do like the retro revamp type stuff. I've never played any of it. But the second I saw the size of it, I knew this is a tie-in comic for physical media. That is an art form that is dying these days, unfortunately, especially for people who are on a budget. Like I love, physical media. I'm not able to buy as many things as I want to. So the fact that a 50-page comic came in probably equally expensive for the time and for now game cartridge. The fact that 50 pages came extra, that's really impressive. I'm really, really shocked by that. So this came out in Berserk, the game Berserk. And so volume 1 of the series was each included with 5 titles, 5 gaming consoles. So the first one came out in Defender. This one's Berserk. Number 3 was Star Raiders. Number 4 was Phoenix. And number 5 was Galaxian. And these all kind of came out in 1982. Apparently they did a prequel series in 1983, and then they did a second series that was released in conventional comic book form that didn't require you to buy
An Atari.
an Atari or a cartridge to get involved in. That series ran between 1984 and 1983 or 1985, and it follows these characters 25 years later. And that series actually ran for 20 issues.
Wow.
So I think that there was some people who were like, "Hey, I'm actually kind of surprisingly interested in this. Maybe we should do more with it."
Going.
Some notes on the creative team. All the artists that are involved in this have a lot of like classic art on their belt. But I really wanted to focus in on the writers. One of them, Roy Thomas, he's known for bringing Conan the Barbarian to comic book form. We're both big Conan fans. I just love the world building of Conan. I like the old books as well as any kind of comic form. I'm not crazy about him as a Marvel character, like a character that exists in the Marvel universe. I don't care about that. I like him more just as his own
Yeah, I agree.
standalone thing.
Yeah.
But more importantly, Jerry Conway, he's a really notable author for the big two. So for Marvel, he's known for co-creating The Punisher, Ben Reilly Spider-Man, and he wrote The Death of Gwen Stacy.
Wow.
So those are, maybe Ben Reilly is like the least memorable of all of those.
Still a pretty big.
But still,
Yeah.
the Death of Gwen Stacy is such an iconic core memory of Spider-Man. So he definitely deserves some credit for doing that. And then for DC, he's known for co-creating Jason Todd, Firestorm. No one cares about Firestorm. Power Girl. Everybody loves Power Girl. Killer Croc. I'm a big Killer Croc fan. And he wrote Justice League of America for 8 years.
Wow.
So he had a really good run. It's always really interesting to see big names that are known for like their superhero work and just knowing the fact that like there was some board meeting or somebody knocked on, Jerry Conway's bullpen cubicle door and was like, "Hey, so you're on the Atari thing now." And then they just had to do it. Like I think that's really, really kind of fun that a lot of the artists that we might revere today from that era were also just trying to make a living,
That's why I wonder how like projects like this were viewed by them, because to some extent and maybe to a large extent, I'm sure even just working on these main titles for like Marvel and DC, that it just starts to feel like a job. So I wonder if this feels just like an overly just like commercial project for them.
I wonder if any artists were sort of just like, "This is the moment I sold out."
Yeah.
Like, I'm morally bankrupt.
Versus like today, I think something like that, people would be chomping at the bit to hop on a cool project like this, like a tie-in comic for a game console.
Oh, I mean, it happens all the time where here's the thing. Like, a gig is a gig, especially if it's doing something you love. I cannot fault anyone for being like, "Man, I've grown up my whole life and I loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And now I'm working on the IDW book for that." Like, I don't care about TMNT, but like, I'm not going to scoff at anyone sort of achieving that dream and wanting to, chomping at the bit. There's a couple properties for me that if I ever got the chance, I would be like, I don't care what it is. Put me involved. Like I would love to do something with Star Wars, the Alien and Predator franchise, even Army of Darkness. I think those are all fun worlds to play. And do you have anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, again, like pie in the sky, it would be a dream to work on like a DC property, like kind of just any DC property. I think probably my number one pick, if I could pick any property to do any work for, would be Conan. I love that sort of sorcery stuff. Like,
man, that would be so fun. If you haven't played the video game Conan Exiles, you should. I know you haven't, but
I haven't. If you're a career writer or a career artist, and then they hit you with this, presumably, if it's viewed as a commercial project, there's probably a decent paycheck along with it too. So
I wonder if even some of these are better.
Yeah,
like because they're bankrolled by an additional company versus like that potential for payout from good sales or a character taking off. Yeah, I am curious what the breakdown of that is, but whatever it was, I think that they had fun with it because To my surprise, I thought that this was going to be. I didn't know what I expected. It wasn't this, and I was really pleasantly surprised. So, I actually have a decently long story synopsis because it's 50 pages, and I feel like all the information that I have pushed into it is all really interesting. It is the year 2005. The world is in crisis. Ravaged by war, the planet and its peoples suffer. Their only hope is the Atari Institute and the formation of their new team, the Atari Force, comprising of Commander Champion, pilot Lydia Perez, Dr. Orion, flight engineer Scene, and security officer O'Rourke makes up the team of Atari Force. In this issue, all but one member of the team meet with the head of the Atari Institute, Mr. Director, which I love. I don't know why. I love that name. It's genius. This meeting is cut short when an intruder is detected, bypassing all of the Institute's security. For whatever reason, this spirals Scene, one of the characters, into an uncomfortable flashback, showcasing his origins. This is kind of a dated aspect of it, but Scene is presumably Indian. It talks about how he grew up on the streets of Delphi as like a poor beggar. And so the sirens send him to this flashback in which he's a child and they go to beg at this like rich white guy. The rich white guy drops his wallet and falsely accuses the boys of robbing him. So he sends the police after them. The two boys flee from the police. The main character stops. His friend does not. He slips, hits his head, drowns.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. And so he is sent into this flashback because the sirens of the police car are sort of mimicked by the sirens of this sort of security system. So he's shaken awake. So we're given his origin in this character's origin. They kind of come to find out that when they find the intruder that has sort of set off the alarm, turns out it was actually a test conducted by the security officer, the missing member of the from the meeting, Officer O'Rourke, who we also get her backstory. She is the child of a Chinese and Irish parent. So she talks like an Irish lass, but she looks like sort of an Asian martial artist. Like a weird kind of combination that they're going for in this. So essentially she reveals herself. They all meet up. The team is assembled, and they are introduced to their vessel and their mission. So their vessel is Scanner 1, and it contains a hyper-intelligent computer, the Atari 8000, of course. Gotta have all the branding. And they are undertaking the mission Project Multiverse. Their world is so screwed that they're now looking for other worlds in the multiverse to colonize and inhabit. Like, there's so much to this.
Yeah, this sounds awesome.
For being like, it's
a promotional tie-in.
Yeah, it's equivalent of like the Xbox Force.
Yeah.
Like, I would laugh at the Xbox Force because if it was made now, it would be a blatant cash grab.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it'd be like how whenever like the NFL gets like a superhero
comics.
thing, and it just looks ridiculous. It looks like a cereal commercial, right? Mm-hmm. This does not like that. Like, this has depth to it. We get two backstories for the characters. The backstory for O'Rourke is actually really cool. She was a soldier, and she gets like she's in a paratrooping squad, and she gets dropped to blow up some place. There's like this unspoken enemy that's causing the end of the world. They kind of look like Nazis, but she goes to like take out this facility. They plant all these bombs, and then she gets sort of taken by surprise, and an enemy pushes the button and it sets all the bombs off, and her squad is killed.
Wow.
So like, this is a game.
Yeah.
This is a game tie-in comic book. Why does it have all this depth of lore?
Going so hard.
It's really, really good. So some of my favorite parts from it, obviously the world building. Some of the details remain, like who the enemy is. They're just spoken like they are the enemy. Mm-hmm. Or when they're talking about the world sort of collapsing, they say the enemy's government collapsed. And it's like sort of leading to all these problems. I think it's really fun to have some of this stuff in a sort of a corporate tie-in. And they use the corporate logo of Atari for everything. I think it helps that Atari is defunct now. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just like part of history. So like the aesthetic of the logo being used for like when they're at the meeting table, it is the shape of the table. It's on all their uniforms. I think it really works. It works in like that Weyland-Yutani way, where it's funny that it's a real company, and they talk about it nicely. Obviously, like they're meant to be the saviors of humanity. You know, their computer technology is so good it's going to take you to other planets, other worlds, even in the multiverse. I don't know. I think it works for me. If it was obviously a more recognizable logo nowadays, I think it would, like if this was Xbox or PlayStation, it would look really ugly.
Feel really weird.
And it wouldn't have any heart. There's a lot of heart to this. The art is surprisingly clean. It's dynamic. It's accessible. It's really clean. And it's really like, that's something I always look for in comics. And I try to remember when I'm doing my own is it readable? Like, can you look and decipher what this image is, or does things get lost? And sometimes like that's an issue that happens in a later stage of the comic, like in the coloring phase or the inking phase, or it wasn't ever present in the pencils and it just gets lost. So the fact that it's like so cohesive and like legible is really, really, really cool. It totally embraces that like retro futuristic sci-fi aesthetic that's like my preferred sci-fi. I'm not a big fan of the NASA punk. Like yes, Interstellar is a great movie. Aesthetically it works for that, but I don't want to watch like a dozen movies that look just like that. I want the colorful costumes.
And spaceship with a VHS player.
This feels very much like the like A New Hope, Blade Runner, RoboCop, like all that, where it's sort of like it's still we're trying to tell you that this is the future, but we're still using technology of the 80s. Almost
like proto cyberpunk kind of like.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. The aesthetic just works really well. There's a really we were talking about this a little bit off camera about our own projects, but backgrounds is like the bane of any artist's existence, I think. Unless you love doing them, then good for you. We're jealous of you. Almost every single panel, unless it's like meant to have like a punch, has the background depicted. And yeah, sometimes it's just like a single color or it's just a couple lines, but you really, really get a good sense of scene and setting every single page. And it depicts a full scene. It's really, really impressive. And then honestly, the characters are really well developed. We get 2 like literal origin stories. And you get a little hint of each character. Like they go in a little bit about how like the Doctor is obviously like a pacifist. Or there's like a sort of blossoming romance between Captain Champion and the pilot. Like she keeps calling him a dumb jock, but then she's also like, maybe you're not just a dumb jock. And he's giving her the same looks. Like there's some stuff happening here. What's funny is even the 2 characters that get their origin stories, I'm like, oh, I'm sensing a little chemistry here. Come to find out that their daughter is a character in the second series that comes out, one that takes place 25 years later. So they laid so much groundwork that even just reading this issue, which is issue number 2, I still feel like I understand. I have a somewhat grasp of the characters, the world, what they intend to do, everything. Like in a single package. Like this could be, of all of the stuff I've read, even the one shot, the one that was meant to be standalone, this is the most standalone issue that I've read.
Interesting.
So far.
Yeah.
And feel like I got a full package, and it was $1. Like 50 pages of good art, good story, good world building for $1. I grabbed it because I thought it was going to be a gimmick. I thought I was going to be talking more about all of the sort of Atari background stuff, but no, the series itself is really good. Last thoughts on this one. Even before delving into the research, I found myself really surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I picked it up. I thought it was going to be low quality. I wanted an opportunity to discuss tie-in comics, or just the fact of extra stuff coming in your physical media. I'm talking about like when you used to buy a video game and you would get like a little pamphlet that had art on it and stuff. Like that is sort of just a missing byproduct of the modern age, and I miss it. I miss it dearly. But yeah, I'm thinking about checking out the rest of the storyline and the other issues. Very fortunately, I found a sort of somebody's personal blog, and they have uploaded the entirety of each issue.
Awesome.
Scanned. Really, really, really nice definition. If I remember, I'll have us include that if anybody wants to check these out. I would like to find the other physical ones, but yeah, super surprising how much I love this. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10.
Sweet. Yeah, this sounds really cool.
I love the character design, and for a compact book, like it's surprisingly you can see a lot. Like it doesn't feel shrunk.
It reads pretty well. You can tell. I think they definitely had in mind that it was going to be this little kind of digest size.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like that's cool. There's a cool page where he's fighting the intruder. I love this page. I'm gonna have we're gonna put a picture of this one up, but it's a scene in which she's paratrooping down.
Yeah, this
like it's surprising. Like
this is not what you think of when you think of Atari.
No, I'm really impressed with it, and I had a really good time with it. I kind of am mad that I read it first, but it was the one that I was like, the moment I grabbed it when we did our picks, I'm like, I was chomping the bit to check it out, and it kind of maybe lowered my love for these other ones, just because like after reading something so good, you kind of go into these ones and you're like, I don't know. But yeah, this is right up my alley. I totally love this thing. I highly recommend it. Of all the things that I've picked up, if you can get your hands on this, or if you see it out in the wild, or if you find that way to watch it or read it online, I highly recommend it. I found it really interesting, really fun. So to kind of wrap off, we're going to kind of do one last look at of our picks. So sort of going from least favorite to most favorite of these three. So what is your third pick?
Third pick for me would be Magnus Robot Fighter. Again, not a bad book. I wouldn't say don't check it out if you find it, but I wouldn't go out of your way to find it either.
I would have picked it up if I was looking in the bin that you were looking in. I would have picked that up.
It's a cool cover. It's not a bad book, but
yeah, art looks cool though.
Yeah.
My least favorite is Wraith and Son by Frank Miller Presents. Yeah, not bad. You can spend your time with much better sort of analog superheroes, and maybe some of the other series is interesting, but I wouldn't worry about this one. All right, what's your second pick?
Second would be the Turkey Day one shot. If you do have the opportunity to pick this up, I would recommend it. It's a fun little, especially if you're into comedy and horror comics, it's a fun little self-contained story.
Or just a big fan of Thanksgiving, as so many of you are. For me, my second one would probably be Ultraverse Nightman. I don't hate what it had to say. I had a lot of fun with the sort of 90s of it all. I picked it up for that reason. I mean, the cover kind of gives you the hint that that's what you're going to get. And so I wanted to sort of approach that genre in this episode. Yeah, not too bad. Curious about the other series.
My top pick of mine would be The Blue Flame, issue 1. This is a series I plan on continuing. Cool characters, interesting story. Yeah, excited to see where this one goes.
And then for me, I think mine's going to be Atari Force. And you can see, look how this is a tiny compact book, but it reads so well. It's a little disheveled just because it's so old. This wasn't in a case at all, but it's held up really well. Yeah, if you can find this online, I would highly recommend reading it. I want to check it out myself. Really good, really surprising stuff. This is the kind of thing I would see and be like, oh, I want to make comics, because it just seems so much fun.
Thank you for watching Tales from the Bin, episode 1. This is a series we plan on continuing. Probably try to release episodes monthly, so just keep an eye out for that. Consider following the channel, liking, subscribing. Leave us a comment if you liked what you saw, or if there's any other context you might have for any of these picks or things you think we should check out. Feel free to let us know.
Yeah, we're always open to discussion. That's the nice thing about being sort of early and starting, is that we're sort of open books, and we're excited to hear from anyone out on the other side. We will, continue this series. Sometimes we might iterate on the formula, but we will let you know ahead of time when that's going to happen. But for now, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.